Story 1. The Valentine Stalker. I met Sarah last November. It was one of those classic modern romances. She posted a picture of a hiking trail on Instagram. I commented asking where it was, and 3 days later we were drinking coffee in downtown Portsmouth, New Hampshire. Things moved fast. By January, we were practically inseparable. Sarah was smart, funny, and beautiful. But there was always this undercurrent of anxiety with her. She checked her phone constantly. She never walked to her car alone at night. A week before Valentine's Day, she finally told me why. We were at my apartment, watching a movie, when her phone buzzed on the coffee table. She glanced at it, turned pale, and flipped it face down. "Who is it?" I asked. She sighed, looking defeated. "His name is Kevin." Kevin was a guy she had taken a history class with at the local community college 2 years ago. They had been assigned to a group project together. That was it. But Kevin took that as a sign from the universe. He started texting her. First, it was about the project. Then it was about her day. Then it was about how much he loved the blue sweater she wore on Tuesday. When she blocked him, he made new numbers. When she ignored him, he started showing up at her job at the library, sitting in the corner, just watching her over the top of a book.
"He's been quiet for a few months," Sarah whispered. "But he always pops up around holidays. He just texted me, 'I know you're not alone. Who is he?'"
My stomach dropped. "He knows about me?" "I don't know how," she said, tearing up. "I haven't posted you online." I tried to be the tough, protective boyfriend. I told her to screenshot everything. I told her if he showed up, I'd handle it. 2 days later, on February 12th, Sarah came home to find a package on her doorstep. It was a heart-shaped box of cheap chocolates, the kind you buy at a gas station. There was no note, just a single dead red rose taped to the lid. 10 minutes later, a text from a spoofed number. "Hope you like the candy. The rose reminded me of you. Dying, but beautiful." She called the police. They took a report, but without direct threats of violence. They said there wasn't much they could do besides drive by her house more often. Fast forward to Valentine's Day. It was a Friday. A blizzard had just rolled through, dumping a foot of snow on the sea coast. The world was white, silent, and freezing. We decided to stay in. Sarah didn't feel safe going out, and honestly, neither did I. We cooked dinner at my place, a small rental house that backs up to a dense patch of woods. Around 9 p.m., we were sitting on the couch, the only light coming from the TV and the fireplace. It was cozy. Then, Sarah froze.
"Did you hear that?"
she whispered. "Hear what?" "Outside. In the snow." I muted the TV. I listened. Crunch. Crunch. It was faint, but distinct. The sound of boots compressing fresh, dry snow. It was coming from the backyard. "Stay here," I said, grabbing a heavy flashlight from the kitchen drawer. I walked to the sliding glass door that led to the deck. I didn't turn on the porch light immediately. I wanted to see if I could catch movement. I peered out into the darkness. The snow reflected the ambient light, making the yard glow a ghostly gray. At first, I saw nothing. Just the trees and the mound of snow covering the fire pit. Then, I saw the tracks. A fresh set of boot prints led from the woods across the lawn and stopped right at the edge of the deck. But they didn't go back. Whoever made them was still close. I flipped on the porch light. The sudden glare illuminated the deck, and there, crouched behind the propane grill, was a shape. It wasn't an animal. It was a person, curled into a ball, wearing a dark coat covered in snow. My heart hammered against my ribs. "Hey!" I yelled through the glass.
I'm calling the cops.
The figure slowly stood up. He was tall, lanky, wearing a ski mask rolled up like a beanie. His face was red from the cold. He was shivering violently. It was Kevin. He didn't run. He just stood there on my deck, staring at me through the glass with dead, hollow eyes. He raised a hand and waved. A slow, stiff wave. Then, he pointed a finger at Sarah, who was standing behind me screaming. I unlocked the door and charged out. It was stupid, I know, but adrenaline took over. "Get on the ground!" I shouted, blinding him with the flashlight. He didn't fight. He just collapsed into the snow, sobbing. He kept repeating over and over, "It's supposed to be me! It's supposed to be me!" The police arrived 10 minutes later. They found a knife in his coat pocket. A serrated hunting knife. They also found his car parked a mile down the road. Inside, he had duct tape, zip ties, and a printout of a map with a red circle around my house. He had figured out who I was by following Sarah from work weeks ago. Sarah got a permanent restraining order. Kevin went to a psychiatric facility, then jail for stalking and possession of a weapon with intent. We broke up a few months later. The trauma was too much for the relationship to handle. But every time it snows, I still check the backyard for footprints that only go one way. Story 2. The Portfolio. This happened 4 years ago in a small coastal town in Oregon. It's one of those foggy, picturesque places that tourists flock to in the summer, but in February, it's a ghost town. My boyfriend, Alex, and I drove down for a Valentine's weekend getaway. We had reservations at this upscale seafood place on the edge of a cliff. As we were walking from the parking lot to the entrance, the wind was whipping my hair around, so we paused near a bench to fix our coats. That's when I noticed them. Sitting on the bench, despite the freezing 40-degree weather, was an older couple. They looked like they were in their late 50s. The woman was wearing a pristine white fur coat, and the man was in a tuxedo. Not a suit, a full tuxedo. They were just sitting there, staring at us with these frozen plastic smiles. As we passed, the woman shot up from the bench. She moved with unnerving speed for her age. "Excuse me!" she called out. Her voice was too loud, too cheerful. "I'm Mrs. Sterling, and this is my husband, Arthur." Arthur didn't speak. He just nodded, his smile not wavering an inch. I squeezed Alex's hand. "Hi," I said, trying to be polite but keep moving. "We couldn't help but notice," Mrs. Sterling continued, stepping into our path. "You two have exquisite bone structure. The symmetry is breathtaking. Arthur and I are photographers. We have a studio just 5 minutes down the road. The lighting there is perfect right now. You simply must let us take your portrait." "No thanks," Alex said firmly. "We have a reservation." "Oh, dinner can wait." She reached out and touched the sleeve of my coat. Her fingers were ice cold. "We don't want money. We just want to capture your essence for the collection."
We're leaving,
Alex said. He physically steered me around them and pushed me through the restaurant doors. Inside, we tried to laugh it off. "Essence for the collection?" Alex joked. "Sounds like code for we want to wear your skin." We ate dinner, but I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. When I went to the restroom, I peered out the window. The bench was empty. We decided to skip dessert and go to this retro arcade down the street to play some skee-ball. We were the only ones there, aside from the bored teenager behind the counter. About 20 minutes in, I heard the bell on the front door chime. I turned around, and my blood ran cold. Standing in the doorway were the Sterlings. They weren't playing games. They were standing side by side, scanning the room. When Mrs. Sterling saw me, her eyes widened, and that same manic smile stretched across her face.
There you are,
She exclaimed, walking toward us.
Fate keeps bringing us together. It's a sign.
Arthur, the husband, finally spoke. His voice was deep and gravelly.
The lighting is fading. We need them now.
You guys are following us, Alex said, his voice rising. Back off, or we're calling the cops. Mrs. Sterling's smile faltered for a second, replaced by a look of genuine annoyance. Don't be difficult, dear. Art requires sacrifice. We dropped our tokens and speed-walked out the back exit. We ran to Alex's car and locked the doors. We sat there for a minute, hearts pounding. Let's just go back to the Airbnb, I said. This night is ruined. The drive back to our rental was about 15 minutes down a winding 2-lane road through a dense pine forest. There were no streetlights. It was pitch black. We were about 3 miles in, driving in silence, when we saw headlights in the rearview mirror. A car was gaining on us fast. It was an old, boxy Lincoln town car. Is that them? I asked, looking back. I don't know, Alex said, gripping the wheel. Suddenly, bang! The car jerked violently to the right. The sound of rubber shredding filled the cabin. We had blown a tire. Alex fought to keep control, wrestling the car to the shoulder. We skidded to a halt in the gravel. Get out, Alex whispered instantly. Get out now. What about the spare? No, he hissed. 2 tires don't blow at the same time on a smooth road. That was a trap. He killed the lights. We scrambled out of the passenger side and dove into the thick fern underbrush of the forest, crawling on our bellies until we were hidden behind a large redwood stump. Seconds later, the Lincoln town car screeched to a halt behind our crippled vehicle. The doors opened. The Sterlings stepped out. Mrs. Sterling wasn't smiling anymore. She was holding a heavy-duty spotlight. Arthur opened the trunk of their car and pulled out a large black duffel bag. It clanked like it was full of metal tools. Check the car, Arthur commanded. Mrs. Sterling shined the light into our empty windows. They're gone. Damn it! Arthur kicked our bumper. We took too long with the caltrops. They must have run into the woods. Can we hunt them? Mrs. Sterling asked, her voice trembling with excitement. No, Arthur growled, throwing the bag back into the trunk. Too much risk. If they have phones, the police are already on the way. We abort. They got back into their Lincoln, slammed the doors and peeled out, leaving us alone in the dark. We stayed behind that stump for 20 minutes until the state trooper arrived. When he inspected our tires, he found homemade spikes embedded in the rubber. Nails welded together into caltrops, scattered across the road. We never found out who the Sterlings really were. But sometimes, I look at missing persons posters, and I wonder how many of them ended up in that collection. Story 3. The Screaming Guest. This happened in February of 2019, during my sophomore year at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. That winter was brutal. We were in the middle of a polar vortex, with temperatures dropping to negative 20 degrees. The whole campus felt like a frozen wasteland. I had just moved into a cheap ground-floor apartment off campus. It was a bit dingy, with windows that sat flush with the sidewalk outside, but it was mine. Being newly single right before Valentine's Day, I was feeling the isolation pretty hard. A few days before the holiday, I matched with a girl named Chloe on Tinder. Chloe was cute, in an indie, artsy way. Dyed silver hair, thick-rimmed glasses, and a bio that said she was a transfer student studying art history. We texted for a couple of days. She was a little dry in her responses, but I just assumed she was shy. Since the weather was life-threateningly cold, we decided to skip the bar scene for Valentine's Day. She agreed to come over to my place for takeout and movies. When she arrived around 7 p.m., she was bundled up in so many layers I could barely see her face. She seemed normal enough at first, though she had this intense way of staring at me without blinking for long stretches of time. We ate pizza, drank some cheap wine, and eventually, things moved to the bedroom. Everything went fine. We hooked up, and afterwards we both fell asleep around 1 a.m. I'm usually a heavy sleeper, but something woke me up around 3:30 a.m. I felt the weight shift on the mattress. In the dark, I saw Chloe slide out of bed. She didn't say anything. She walked silently to the bathroom in the hallway, turning on the light and shutting the door. I rolled over and went back to sleep, thinking nothing of it. I woke up again at 5:15 a.m. The first thing I noticed was the cold. My bedroom door was open, and a draft was cutting through the apartment. I reached over to the other side of the bed. Empty. The sheets were ice cold. "Chloe?" I croaked, my voice thick with sleep. I sat up and looked toward the bathroom. The light was off. The door was open. Then I saw her. Chloe was standing in the far corner of my bedroom, near the closet. She was completely naked. Her back was turned to me, and she was standing perfectly still, facing the corner of the walls like a punished child in a horror movie. My stomach dropped. The vibe in the room shifted instantly from confusion to pure dread. "Chloe?" I said, louder this time. "Are you okay?" She didn't move. She didn't flinch. She just stood there, her pale skin glowing in the faint street lamplight filtering through the blinds. I got out of bed, shivering. I walked slowly toward her, my bare feet sticking to the hardwood floor. "Hey," I whispered, reaching out to touch her shoulder. "What's wrong?" The second my fingertips brushed her skin, she snapped. She spun around with inhuman speed. Her face was twisted into a mask of pure, feral rage. Her eyes were wide, bloodshot, and completely vacant. And she screamed. It wasn't a scream of fear. It was a guttural, high-pitched shriek of aggression, like a banshee. Ree! Before I could react, she started hitting me. She flailed her arms wildly, slapping my chest, scratching at my face, all while maintaining that continuous, ear-splitting scream. I stumbled back, tripping over my own feet and falling onto the bed. "What the hell? Stop!" She didn't stop. She lunged at me, swinging her fists. I kicked out, pushing her away. Suddenly, she stopped screaming. She stared at me for 1 second, just a blank, dead stare. Then she scrambled to the floor, scooped up her pile of clothes in one arm, and bolted. She ran out of the bedroom, down the hall, and out the front door into the freezing hallway, completely naked. I sat there on the bed, hyperventilating, holding my scratched chest. "What just happened?" I whispered to the empty room. Then, the smell hit me. It was a thick, metallic stench coming from the bathroom. I walked into the hallway and turned on the bathroom light. I gagged immediately. The room was destroyed. The shower curtain was ripped off the rod. My toiletries were swept onto the floor, and on the mirror, she had defecated in the sink and used her hands to smear it all over the glass. I called the police immediately. An officer arrived 20 minutes later. I told him everything. He looked at the bathroom, grimaced, and took a report. "We'll keep an eye out," he said. "But honestly, son, she's probably gone. Did you get her last name?" I realized I hadn't. I checked Tinder. Her profile was gone. Unmatched. I checked Snapchat. Blocked. I had no last name, no phone number, we used the app mostly, and no idea where she lived. The police advised me to lock my doors and maybe stay with a friend. I called my buddy Dave, who lived in the unit above me. He came down with a baseball bat, and we spent the rest of the night sitting in my living room with the lights on, too wired to sleep. Around 3 a.m. the next night, exactly 24 hours after she had first arrived, we heard it. Jiggle, jiggle. The front doorknob turned slowly. Dave and I froze. We watched the deadbolt. It held. Then, a soft, rhythmic scratching started on the wood of the door. Scritch, scritch, scritch. We stayed silent. After about 5 minutes, the scratching stopped, and we heard light, barefoot steps padding away down the hallway. I moved out of that apartment at the end of the semester. To this day, I have no idea who Chloe was, or what mental break she suffered that night. But every time I wake up in the middle of the night now, the first thing I do is check the corners of the room.